We're going to tell you our biggest offensive storylines to watch during the 2025 NFL Combine next week and why it may or may not revolve around the quarterbacks. This and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an offensive draft analyst over with Bleacher Report, and that's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He is the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion for those LSU Tigers. Guys, thank you so much for tapping in with us and being our everydayers in every single day of the week, guys. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. We have a fun show. We're getting into the offensive combine storylines, offensive prospects with the most on the line, and then Fan Mail Friday. Keith, when you look at the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine, for me, I think about the offensive storyline I'm looking forward to is who's going to duck the smoke when I think about the quarterbacks. Because, it's every year somebody doesn't throw. And it's like, hey, if you're healthy, throw, right? Like we've seen, crazy enough, we've seen that think about the gold ball drill at the combine for the quarterbacks, how that gets guys drafted. Josh Allen went out there and wowed everybody. Remember, was it 2 years ago? We had the duel between CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. Had the like I was in the building, had just having people buzzing. People were excited about that. I want to see Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if I know I sent you one of the videos off of YouTube, but for people who don't know, I think it's Well Off Media. Follow Shedeur around. They do documentaries on him and videos and stuff, and they do a lot of stuff with him and Cam. And those two are cousins, but the way that they talk and compete, you would think they were like literally brothers, and that's how they operate. That type of competitiveness that they have with their training with QB Select, their QB coach. Bring that to the combine. Go throw for throw. Go back to back, and just go out there and light it up. Jaxson Dart, same thing. Will Howard. I don't want to see any of these quarterbacks, Keith, duck the smoke. Everybody come out here, compete. Tyler Shuck went on Twitter. I think shout out to Lewis Riddick was talking about him. He quote tweeted, said, "I'm throwing at the combine." I want to see that type of energy, man. I don't want to see no one duck the smoke and leave anything to chance, because then what happens is you allow the narratives to be created. Oh, he don't want to throw. He's not. Remember I'm not gonna get. I don't remember who the guy was, but what the Caleb like last year at the combine. Hey, Caleb, you're not doing anything out here. You're scared to compete. Like just weird stuff like that. Don't even give that room to be curated. Like just go out there and ball out, man. I don't care. I'm not saying. Listen, I'm not going. Can you tell me how you feel about it? I'm not going to criticize a quarterback throwing the dudes they've never met before if it isn't directly on the money. Like, you've never trained with these guys. I don't expect you to. You know what I mean? But at least go out here and compete, show off the arm talent, and as the reps, what I want to see is development throughout the reps. Next time you come up, if you put too much air on that last pass, hey, put a little bit more velocity on it this time. You put too much velocity, hey, pull that string, get a little more air underneath that throw, and correct your mistakes and show you that you're coaching yourself through the drill.
Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting take, DP. And I think that, to be completely honest, a couple of those guys are not going to throw, right?
I got a feeling.
Who we want to see throw, right? Obviously, Shedeur and Cam, they're probably not going to throw. And it becomes one of those situations where they probably feel that they have too much to lose to not have everything scripted, right? And that's the thing. But on the other side, it was like, hey, we want to see you, go out there unscripted and just figure some things out and throw.
Because you let Will Howard go out there and throw them bombs, and Tyler Shuck go out there, and Jaxson Dart already has first round buzz. Now you allowing these guys to kind of start nipping at your heels a little bit.
I think that people, especially in media, I won't say NFL talent evaluators, but media, they're looking for a reason, right, to put somebody else at QB1 at this point, probably QB1 and QB2, right? If they can. I look at it this. I want to see these big wide receivers run, right? What does Pat Bryant run? What does Jayden Higgins run? Savion Williams, Tre Harris, right? We're talking about all of those guys, and we're talking about the back end of the first round, we usually see mock drafts as usually a bunch of edge rushers, right? That kind of get backloaded to the first round, even with teams that need wide receivers, right? Like, can the Buffalo Bills potentially, with the loss of Amari Cooper, use another wide receiver, but you don't feel comfortable? But I look at it this: if one of those big wide receivers go down and put down a 4-3, then are we going to have a different conversation? And they even potentially elevate themselves past a Matthew Golden or something, because people are going to look at the measurables and then run back to the film and say that, oh, the film is good, and he runs a 4.3 or a high, a low 4.4, and then we're going to have that conversation again. So I'm looking at the big-bodied wide receivers and seeing, hey, what does the 40 time look for some of those guys? Because the opposite side of that is that you run a 4.55, you run a 4.65, right? You're probably going in the third round.
Yeah, it's going to be like, that's a very good storyline to watch for sure, because like you said, this receiving class with all these bigger body guys, you gotta, like, a lot of these guys have been clumped together for a while. You know, the Jayden Higgins, the Pat Bryants, like I said, Savion, especially with Savion, the expectation for him to test well, because he been be on the freaks list for for the Athletic and everything like that. Bruce Feldman's freak list and everything, being an explosive, dynamic athlete. Yeah, you come in at 6'4", 220, 225, and man, you bust a 4.3. That's because he's got some of the drop issues where it's like not being a natural hands catcher. So it's like, man, if he go put that down, and let's say he says, you know what, I'm not doing the gauntlet drill. I just ran a 4.34. I measured it at 6'4", 225. I jumped 41 inches in the vert. I got 11 in the broad. I'm not doing nothing else. Like, I'm not doing no field drills. I'm done. If that's the case, you leave things to, like, it's almost leaving things to imagination. So now people are like, well, I wonder how he would have done in the gauntlet drill, how he would have caught passes on the field. But man, he tested so well, and that's going to be the highlight. And then that gets you bumped up in the draft to where someone says, listen, we need a guy like this. We need that big body, explosive guy on our team. So going out there, like a Savion Williams, going there and killing the 40-yard dash and all the testing, like, that could bump you up a whole round. You know what I mean? To where if people look at you as a third-round pick, now you middle of the second. You know what I mean? Or if there's some teams that have, you know what, I got a late second on him, that you test well, you bump up to late first, and they're willing to take that swing, you know what I mean, and try and propel themselves, especially the contending teams, right? You think with the Baltimore Ravens, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Bills and all those, the Commanders, all those teams could still use more wide receiver help. So it's like, yeah, if you go out here and do your thing, it's going to help you get drafted a lot earlier than the consensus probably felt before you coming into the combine. So I am definitely looking at to see where these guys test, because again, you got to separate yourself. Like, if you have a similar skill set to the other 6'3" receiver, okay, so what do you do better? Like, what if you run routes similar, if your ball skills are similar, if you block similar, it's like, because then it becomes that this or that situation, Keith, how we do in the pod, where it's like, well, I could get Jayden Higgins at the top of the third, or maybe I can get Pat Bryant at the top of the fourth. Well, if they're the exact same guy or very similar, and their speeds are not that much different, I'll wait and get Pat Bryant if he's in the fourth. I'd rather wait for him, and then I get another impact player at the third round pick. So it creates those type of conversations in war rooms for teams down that stretch of March into the beginning of April before the draft boards are finalized.
Yep, no, I agree, DP, and this is gonna be fun, right? We're talking big wide receivers, seeing what they able to do. Quarterbacks, will they throw the football? And I think this quarterback class is rounding out to be deeper than what people initially thought with the emergence of Will Howard and Tyler.
Crazy, that's what happens when you watch film, Keith. You know what I mean? It's a wild thing
when you actually dive into the film. But DP, let's keep this thing going, man. Offensive combine storylines. What are we on to next? The offensive prospects who have the most on the line at the NFL Combine. We're going to talk about that coming up next.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on said action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my Detroit Pistons for a late-game rally or picking Cade Cunningham to hit a late game 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Offensive prospects with the most on the line at the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine. Keith, I go to the tight end spot. With these, like we just talked about the big wide receivers, like trying to like separate yourself. This tight end class, outside of the top two, like with Warren and Loveland, there's like a jumble at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 10, where it's like, all right, guys, it's time to separate yourselves now that we are at the combine. And I'm looking at Tyler Warren. Not that he has to separate himself from the pack, but I think like solidify and cement himself.
So I have a question. Do you think the 40 time will be like, let's say if Tyler Warren runs, and I don't know. All I'm doing is putting out a proposition. I'm not even predicting that these guys are going to run this time. I'm asking is that if Colston Loveland runs a 4.52 and Tyler Warren runs a 4.65, do you see that it being a flip now that Colston is the consensus number one tight end? And then, like, do you see people reacting that way, or are people still going to be in? Do you think that's a big enough gap?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Because you know how, we always talk about on this pod, like, don't overvalue the 40. People always overvalue the 40. So it's like, I think if Tyler, and that's the thing, because the talking points for Tyler Warren is that he's this superb athlete. And I think me and you both kind of agree, like, I don't see the athleticism that everyone on Twitter and social media talks about. Like, yeah, he's good in the straight line when he's geared up and stuff like that, when he opens the stride and everything, but running away from coverages and things of that nature and just blowing by defenders, I don't see that type of speed and burst and acceleration from him out the gate. I see that from Colston Loveland. Like, if you're not tapped into your assignment and you covering him, especially from depth, like, yeah, he'll glide right past you like a gazelle. He has that long stride, that quick get off, all that type of stuff. So if Loveland comes out and hits a 4.52 and we get 4.65, 4.67 from Tyler Warren, it's going to leave some people like mystified a little bit, like, wait a minute. All I've heard is that he's this superb athlete and different things like that. If you're busting close to a 4.7, and again, the 40 time isn't everything, but it does lend, especially at the tight end position. And yes, you do have to be nuanced. You do have to know how to run routes and find spots and get to your land. All that stuff matters too. But in the NFL, when it's 3rd and 8 and you're playing a really good defense and they say we're going man to man, like, you got to be able to do something other than contested catches. You know what I mean? Like, you got to do something more than just that. And you can't expect like I said, you can't expect the refs to let you push off and do different things. Can you win naturally against those tight man-to-man defenders, even if they're a little bit smaller? Can you run by these guys? Can you outstride them down the field, up the seam? Gronk wasn't the most nimble mover. Like, he didn't move like the option routes like Travis Kelce. But how many times you see Gronk line up in the slot, take off, and just beat a DB, a safety, or a nickel on the seam route? Just outrun him. And it was just like, you're 6'7", 260. You shouldn't be able to do this. But he was that type of straight line guy, especially before all the injuries later on in his career. So I think Tyler Warren is a guy that it's just all about cementing yourself. Just go out there, test well, and cement yourself. He's got a lot on the line, in my opinion, because this tight end class is so good. I was on Locked On Colts. I believe it was yesterday, and like that's a conversation with the Colts fan base right now. If a top tier defender falls to him, do we take Tyler Warren in this loaded tight end class, or even Colston Loveland? Do we go with the defensive back that we need to help fit in Lou Anarumu's new scheme that he's bringing over to the Colts? So it's going to be a conversation if he doesn't test the way people expect him to.
Yeah, I mean, I think for this draft, right, I probably say if Will Johnson is there, potential Travis Hunter is there, I say, yes, think about it, right?
Yeah.
Obviously draft those guys. But outside of those corners, unless you want to get a safety or
Malachi.
another defender, maybe, then think about that. But other than that, obviously, I think you go with the tight ends because they're good football players. But DP, I'm gonna list off some names, man, and then I'll see if you see where I'm trending with this in the Locked On family, right? I'm gonna go Dylan Sampson, Trevion Henderson, Kyle Monungai, Jarquez Hunter, Jaden Blue, Trevor Etienne, Brashard Smith, RJ Harvey. DP, did you pick up on a trend?
Yeah. I think I picked up on those change of pace backs there.
Yeah,
Keith.
the change of pace backs. I call it the 5'10" and under club, DP, for the running backs, right? And what is going to be something the most on the line? How fast are they? Right? Because I think the 40 time for them once again will be crucial for those guys, because if you're under 5'10", 5 pounds, right? So if you 5'9", 5'8", 207 pounds, and you run a 4.65, you can guarantee you might as well get yourself suited up for the 5th round, right? That's probably what's going to happen. And we've seen it in the past with the Kyle Monungai guys, right? Not Kyle Monungai guys, Kyron Williams, I wanted to say.
Williams,
and not saying that they're not good football players, but I think you're going to have a hard time convincing teams that you can be an RB1 for them, right? Because you already have to fight the size, and then now the size is going to be a strike, and then now the speed is going to be a strike, to where it's going to be tough. And then I put all of those guys in a bucket because I feel as though they're kind of in the same bucket, right? Like, not just change of pace backs, but ranking them. I think if you ask 10 different people to rank those running backs, you're going to get 10 different results, right? So things like that, like the 40 time for those group of guys, is definitely going to be important because they're already undersized.
No, 100%. I think especially because this like you listed off all those names, there's so many like change of pace style backs, that 5'10" and under club. There's a lot of backs that fit that mold. I think Dylan Sampson is definitely. I mean, I know that. I think online they have him listed at 5'11", 200 and like maybe 200 pounds. Yeah, 201. I don't think he's 5'11". I think he's like, I was watching tape on him yesterday, and I was like, man, he looked kind of small on tape. He looks like he's 5'9", $190. You know what I mean? $185, $190, and I'm like, okay, like you know what I mean? It again raises that question. So I definitely like, why would you declare for this draft? Like, you know what I mean? With all these other big kind of bell cow style backs that teams will typically value. Teams typically, like you said, even with Kyron Williams, you pop on the tape from Notre Dame. He was one of the better backs running the ball. He caught the ball well. He was arguably the best pass protecting back in that class, even though he was the undersized guy, right? Similar to Trevion Henderson, similar to that too, but you didn't have the injury concerns with Kyron coming out that we have with Trevion. So it's like, for these guys, like, yeah, you expect the NFL teams to kind of lean towards an Amarian Hampton, the Ashton Genties, the Caleb Johnson, even the Quinshawn Judkins, these bigger body backs, you know what I mean, that look like they can handle more of a workload as a true RB1 leading a team. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on, because you gotta separate yourself. Like, while he's running, like in this class, like, oh yeah, like you need to, because it's a bad 40. You're a bad 40 time away, like you said, from being a day 3 pick. You know what I mean? Man, like teams really like you, and then you bust a 4.6, and it was like, and you 5'7". You're like, man, that's a tough hill to climb, man. So I don't know how that's going to play out for some of these guys, Keith. But I think a guy that, I go to the wide receiver position, Elik Ayomanor, a guy that we've talked about on this pod that we both like for his game. But the thing we both talked about was like the straight line athleticism. Like, I think for him, I think he's going to jump well. He's going to catch the ball well in the field drills, run routes and all that type of stuff. I think everything is going to be good. But when he lines up those 2 times, you know what I mean, bearing that is twice to run the 40, like, eyes are going to be on him, because it's like, okay, talking about moving the needle. Like, with his game, if he busts a 4.4, he probably like etches his name in stone as a back end of the first round. You know what I mean? If you with the way he plays and the route running, the separation ability, the hands, all that type of stuff, and then you hit a 4.4 in the 40, jumping 37, 38, and you look explosive. Yeah, no, teams are like, absolutely, let's add him. But you know what I mean? I keep talking about those playoff contending teams, those championship desired teams, right? The Commanders. We know we need another guy opposite of Terry McLaurin. right there. Yeah, De'Ami Brown is fine, and we got Luke McCaffrey to try and develop into that slot receiver for us, for the future. Whatever. We need a guy right now. Like we already see where this thing is headed. We got to the NFC Championship game. We need a guy right now. Eli Ayomene could be that guy that pairs well with Terry McLaurin, but you got to go and test well to get there.
Yep, no, 100% with DP. Let's wrap this thing up with Fan Mail Friday. Yes, if you're listening, you have to check on Twitter/X. We drop Fan Mail Friday every Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that way y'all can ask us questions. We're going to open up the mailbox. So we're getting this trend started for draft season. You have any questions, make sure to tap in. Fan Mail Friday. It's coming up next.
Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every day's Fan Mail Friday. You send in the mail, we're going to answer those questions. First up, Keith, we have my guy Jace, Arizona Cardinals fan, on Twitter at AZJace, Jace. He says, hey, DP and Keith, do you guys think the Cardinals should go right tackle at 16? They only have 2 offensive tackles currently on the roster that are healthy. Loaded D-line class for later picks, and Justin Frye from Ohio State now being the O-line coach. Josh Simmons feels like the right pick, ? Keith, do you think that the Cardinals should go at a guy that's coming off the injury and Josh Simmons, but prior to the injury, he looked like he was going to end up being our OT1. Do you think that's the right move for the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, I'll say this. If Josh Simmons is there, then I'm all for it. But the issue is this, that Josh Simmons has been out of sight, out of mind, right? So I think that a lot of people are at this point believing that Josh Simmons will fall. I'm not 100% confident in that. I think things like the combine, things like pro day, right? Like him, like just getting back in the spotlight are going to get people to turn their attention back to him. A lot of this is going to be dependent upon his medicals, right? If it shows that, hey, this guy is on track to be ready for training camp, you can best believe that NFL teams are going to cut the film on from the first few games of this year, the games from last year, and then feel like, hey, if he's this version of healthy, he's probably going to be a top 3 offensive tackle. So if he's there, I say you draft him. The thing is, I'm not sure he is.
Yeah, and I've seen comps for him to Christian Darrisaw, the star tackle for the Minnesota Vikings and everything. And I truly believe he's got a very high ceiling. So no, Keith, to your point, if he's there, right? Like, if he's getting the medicals at the combine, he gets that clean bill of health. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to last to 16 when you got teams like the Chicago Bears and different teams like that. I mean, heck, you still think about the Saints needing to still rectify and fix their offensive line. So if he's there, run that card up Arizona, protect Kyler Murray, and retool this offensive line. Next question came from Stan the Man at MOG. Stan, what's good, Stan? 2 questions he has. Which position group are you guys most looking forward to watching at the combine? And who do you project to run the fastest 40? I'll start, Keith. I'm actually, like, even though we talk about the receivers, we talk about the running backs, even the tight ends, I'm looking at the DB class, the corners. I'm excited to see those guys test it and work out at the combine, because now we keep saying kind of break the cluster. It's a cluster at CB. Outside of Travis Hunter and Will Johnson, okay, Benjamin and Siobhan Revel won't test because of the injuries, but Azariah Thomas, a guy who had a solid week down in Mobile. Can you go out here and solidify yourself as a top of the second round, maybe back into the first type of corner? Mello Dotson, Kobe Bryant, the 2 corners from Kansas, 2 guys that can play good ball. Like, this cornerback class, like, it feels like it's a lot of dust that we still haven't settled yet on this cornerback class. So I think cornerback for me at 1 is for the first question. That's the position group I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with. I have 2. I'm gonna cheat a little bit here. First, the safety class. Don't know if we're gonna have a healthy Kevin Winston. I didn't see that yet, but trying to see what Malachi Starks runs. Sebastian Castro film is really good. Billy Bowman, want to watch him, right? Xavier Watts, what type of 40 does he run? So I think the safety class can wind up rounding out to be a good safety class. I just want to see the athleticism and then the edge rushers. so many different edge rushers in different in almost the same bucket. Who's going to separate themselves athletically, right? Like who's going to show up at 255 pounds and run a 4.4, right? Who's going to have that wow moment? Will it be a Kyle Kennard? Will it be Mike Green, right? And then on the other side of that, who doesn't run as fast to where people starting to question if this guy can play elite level football, or should he be in the category with elite edge rushers in the NFL, right? So that's the two groups that I'm looking at, the safety and the edge rush class.
Good calls on those. Good calls, especially the edge group. Definitely a cluster to be broken up there so guys can land in the right spots. Second question, who you project to win the title as the fastest 40? I think it's Arian Smith from Georgia. That dude has track speed. Like, you know what I mean? When he gets going, he can fly. I thought about Isaiah Bond, but I was like, I remember watching on tape, and I'm like, man, Arian with a free release is dangerous. Like, because once he get he gets a good get off, and then he gets to top speed pretty quickly, and then his top speed is legit. Like, he can outrun most people on the football field with that track background. So I think Georgia wide receiver Arian Smith. I think for him, I think he's gonna be my guy. I'm picking to win the 40.
Yeah, DP. Well, last year, I don't know if you remember. I nailed this last year. Remember? I picked Xavier.
Yes,
you do it, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Your guy got it right. Pick Xavier Worthy.
I can't remember who I picked, but I made a bad decision. Oh, it's Troy Franklin. That's who I picked.
Troy Franklin. Yeah.
Should have known.
But this year, I'll say this: I'm a whole lot less confident. DP, whole lot less confident. So I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna pick one guy. I'm gonna go with Dorian Strong from Virginia Tech. Just because I think he could run. He has length. He's long. I think he can pick him up, put him down. So I'm gonna go with Dorian Strong. But I'll be completely honest. My confidence meter is probably at 4.5. Right, not even a complete 5. I like your pick though, Arian Smith. Picking the track guy. I like him because we know.
I got to go with the low hanging fruit. I need a dub. Last year it was embarrassing for me picking Troy. I really thought Troy was gonna kill it, but he ran 4.41. And I was like, this is not what I actually do, Troy. My girl Shannon Finch off of Twitter at Shanae 10-19. I would like the Ravens to draft a big wide receiver that can stretch the field and a dominant pass rusher. Who should I look out for at the combine? Key, that's a good question. When you look at the wide receiver class,
she kind of basically asked for 2 elite players, right?
Yeah, she did. She did.
I think every team wants that. But nah, just looking at that, a guy that can stretch the field vertically. We mentioned both Pat Bryant and Jayden Higgins early. If you can get those, get one of those guys in the second round, and then I will probably spend a first round pick on one of these edge rushers. And I think you go first round, second round, back to back to where you potentially answer those questions. And I think it's a real possibility that you can hit on both, on both scenarios, right? Get an edge rusher in the first round, potentially get Pat Bryant, Jayden Higgins in the second round, or even your guy, depending on where he goes and what he runs, Tre Harris.
Yeah, 100%. I think Tre Harris is a good one. He's not the ideal field stretcher that she's mentioning, but I think he still could, like, putting him in this offense with Zay.
The question would be this: that is he a 50-50 ball guy, right? That
for sure.
Scramble and then throw the ball right, and you kind of get a big chunk.
Either Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, 100%.
Either Cortland Sutton. I think that we talked about him earlier. Savion Williams from TCU. I think the only thing with Savion is that from an aesthetic standpoint, from how he looks, he might give them flashbacks to Brashard Perriman that they drafted, I think, out of UCF. Over a decade ago, who was super fast. He just couldn't catch the ball. You know what I mean? So he might give him those flashbacks. But 6'5", 220, 225, he hits 4.4. Man, Savion hits 4.3. It's a wrap. You know what I mean?
He's a guy that I would say has a lot on the line too, and probably one of my favorite guys. I put him in the first round of mock a couple months ago. And obviously the catching thing is a problem that needs to be solved, but it'll be interesting to see what people take away from him. Like I said, I think if you look at him as the 6'4", 220-pound version of Deebo Samuel, you may have something.
Oh no, you absolutely have something. And then of course, like edge rusher, when you look at this class, like it's kind of pick of the lily. Like there's a lot of guys in this class that you can add to bolster your pass rush, man. It's so many different guys. James Pierce is potentially sliding down, and that's gonna be the last question we're gonna answer in just a second. So Shannon, look for Savion Williams, Pat Bryant, Jayden Higgins, Tre Harris if he tests. And then on the edge, look for James Pierce Jr., man. I think James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee is a guy that can absolutely fall right to and do what the Ravens always do, Keith. They sit, wait, and draft good players. Last question came from Terrence Boone at MD Sweet T. Why in the world is James Pierce Jr. falling in mock drafts? These so-called character concerns are coming out of left field. Elite production with tremendous upside. There's no way he should not be a top 15 pick, Keith. There supposedly has been some chatter about some off-the-field concerns. I think, from what I gathered, that people were saying that NFL teams are very interested to interview him to see, get a feel for his personality and everything. But what do we know every time it gets close to the combine, Keith? Reports.
Things pop up. So what I'll do this because I don't want to speak on character one way or the other, right? I don't want to tell you, it's low character and he's actually a high character kid. I don't want to tell you he's a high character kid and he's a low character young man, right? So I'll probably reach out to a couple of NFL contacts. I'll be at the combine. I'll have a couple conversations, and then I think I'll be able to give a clearer picture of, what potentially is going on. But you have to handle that. You have to tread lightly and make sure that you also handling it correctly, because obviously you had the Jalen Carter situation years ago to where he fell to 10 and he's been okay with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think the character thing also depends on franchise also.
Yeah, 100%. I think, right now every report for the most part, I think you just take it with a grain of salt because it's a smokescreen season. Like teams are going to tell insiders information to help drop a kid's stock so they fall to them. You know what I mean? That happens every year. I'm not saying that that's this situation, but you just can't rule anything out at this particular point. Do I think he should be a top 20? He's a top 20 talent for sure. I think this guy's one of those guys that with that upside, the athleticism, like I said, he has really good production. He didn't have the same amount of sacks as he had in 2023, but his pressures went up. He was living in the backfield more this season. So he was drawing holding penalties and different things like that. He's a really good player with a really high upside to be one of those bucket getter pass rushers on 3rd and 10 that teams look for. So I just say, man, you know what? Hey, listen, Terrence, let the chips fall where they may. You know what I mean? If he falls to the second round, but see, Keith, I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen. If we play this game again, and then we look up the commissioner says this is the end of the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. We'll be back tomorrow night for round 2, and the final pick in that first round is James Pierce Jr. to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now all the fan bases and all the other 31 teams will be pissed off trying to figure out how do we let Howie Roseman do it to us again? Well, same way you let him get Jalen Carter.
Yep, 100%.
So just let the chips fall where they may, man.
There we go. Let the chips fall where they may with DP. That wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listener is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. Tell a friend to tell a friend that you are listening to this really good podcast for all your source for NFL Draft content over here at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. And guys, coming up on Monday's show, I think Keith is dropping a pre-combine mock draft. We're going to get into mock draft Monday is back. I know more mock draft Tuesday and mock draft Monday is back. So we're going to get a pre-combine mock draft, see what's going through the mind of Keith Sanchez. We're going to break it all down on Monday's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.